Hi, everybody. Sorry, we had some technical difficulties there for a second. We're running a little late this morning because I had some great meetings with some of our firefighters this morning and some of our paramedics. And so I apologize for being a little late. So let's get started, and everybody kind of start inviting everybody. And like I said, I've always liked to try to invite people to come up and watch us live. Today we're going to talk about our veterans. And so thank you again for joining us today. You guys, Mitchell's with me this morning. Jackie couldn't make it. The kids are now out of school, and our kids don't start their summer program until next week. And so they're actually helping on the campaign trail. They this weekend they got a bunch of friends over, and we packaged a bunch of flyers together as we move forward. In the campaign with a week to go, they were doing a lot of volunteer work, and him and a lot of their friends. So welcome everybody, and let's invite some more people to come out and watch us Turnaround Tuesday today. And again, like I said, Jackie was going to join us today, but with the kids and everything, they're actually out doing some campaigning this morning. So Turnaround Tuesday, we got a week to go in the campaign. Today we're going to talk about veterans, and I think it's appropriate that we talk about veterans coming off Memorial Weekend. We had a great Memorial Weekend. You know, my father-in-law, Jackie's stepfather, John Meeks, is a retired lieutenant colonel from the Air Force. He lives here, and Jackie's, I guess my sister-in-law, Jennifer, just retired from the Air Force as a major, and so we've been, we think it's very important. If you saw some of the pictures on Facebook yesterday, we take the boys down every year with John, and we call her Abby, Grandma Judy. We take Abby and John. We go with them every year to the Veterans Memorial, which is a great service, and it's a great time for family because they have a great Veterans Memorial Park, 25 acres. If you've never been there, take your family there. It's a great museum, great park. But the boys love it because we get to expose them not only to the memory of Memorial Weekend and what it means for Grandpa John and what it means for that side of the family, since they've committed themselves so much to our service, and we really appreciate our veterans. But it also exposes the boys on some of the World War II stuff, some of the Vietnam, and some of the wars today that our military really commit themselves to. So we want to thank our veterans for that. We want to thank I hope everybody had a great Memorial Weekend. Go take a look at our pictures. It's always a tradition for us to go with Grandpa John and Judy, Abby we call her, to go out and spend Memorial Weekend out there in the morning with veterans and Veterans Day. And the kids love, the families get to go and pick flags, so then they go put the flags in their yards, and the boys like to do that. It's a tradition we do. So you might see some of those pictures online. But we're talking about veterans today. We've talked about our veterans a few times throughout the campaign. They're extremely important, not only to, we need to make sure we're taking care of our veterans, but we all know that New Mexico has a high index, percentage-wise, in population of veterans. Today we have, I believe the number is over 250,000 veterans in our state. But here's the thing that concerns me as governor. Only 61% of our veterans don't have their benefits. And a lot of it for many different reasons that we can go into. So the key is make sure, how do we get our veterans their benefits? So as governor, here's our veterans plan. And by the way, if you want to go to our website, we've been passing these out, but if you want to go to our website, we actually have our veterans plan. Can they see that, Mitchell? We actually have our veterans plan. We have our veterans plan on our website, and it's about supporting our veterans. But let's talk about that very quickly. 61% of our veterans don't have their benefits, and I think that's a shame. And so we're going to change that. As governor, we've already talked about this. We're going to create community outreach programs for our veterans, and not to educate them or not to bring them together and say, hey, let's get you signed up. We want to create madanzas. We want to create barbecues, a networking for our veterans so they can all come together and learn from each other. And oh, by the way, while they're there, let's get them signed up for their benefits. Let's get them signed up for the GI Bill. Let's get them signed up for educational programs. And then we want to create mentoring programs on the business side. Let me tell you, it's very simple. We owe this to our veterans. We need to defend our veterans and make sure our veterans are taken care of. But at the same time, if 61% of our veterans collect their benefits and get their benefits, and you start looking at the average benefit pay, folks, we're talking about $2 to $2.3 billion of economic growth helping our veterans out. So we have to do that. And then we have to make sure we work with the federal government on the VA. We have a plan with the private-public partnerships that we've been talking about, is making our Veterans Hospital here in New Mexico a 360 regional veterans program for not only medical care, but benefits and health, a 360-degree plan that we can do with the private and public sector also. Again, growing opportunities for our veterans. Within our plan, we talk about it all the time. We have to make sure our veterans get their benefits, but we also want to help. Like, here's an example. Today, by federal agreements, almost 6% of our federal contracts that we have in the state of New Mexico can be they all get subcontracted out about $1 billion, a little bit over $1 billion. Our proposal is, if we can help our veterans start businesses and expand our veteran businesses, that we know that we can go get these federal contracts. And if we get these federal contracts for our veterans and help veterans get these federal contracts and mentor programs that we want to start, both with the Small Business Administration and our program that we want to create with the veterans, we can generate about $60 million of economic growth and also help veteran small businesses. Today, there's 152,000 businesses. There I am, Mitchell, with those statistics again. I know people always tell me I have a lot of numbers, but today we have 152,000 veteran businesses, or 152 small businesses in our state, and 15,000 of those are veterans businesses. As we grow the economy, as we improve our jobs and job opportunities, we want to make sure that veterans not only have mentoring programs and fellowship programs that they can start businesses, but we've already talked to the Small Business Administration. They have veteran programs also, so I want to create a joint partnership with them. So again, our goal is 61% of our veterans don't have any benefits. Let's create outreach programs within our 33 counties. Today we have veterans offices in about 13, 14 of our counties. We want to expand those services to all 33 counties. We were up in Santa Rosa last week, and Santa Rosa basically told us that our veterans have to go to Santa Fe or come to Albuquerque, and they're waiting hours. There's no reasons that we can't combine our services and make sure our veterans have within their counties have opportunities to reach out with our counties, and then some of our bigger counties, maybe they can go to some of our smaller counties and help out there too. So we have a plan for that. Hope that makes sense. And then we want to do community outreach programs like a Madanza, like barbecues, to network with our veterans to make sure they have those as we kind of roll out. And then we have to make sure our younger veterans, specifically in our 20s and 30s, that they come home and they have an opportunity to get their education. And the GI Bill still exists, believe it or not. And but we want to make sure our veterans use those opportunities within 5 years and start creating capabilities. Then we want to create mentoring programships in those areas. And when you see our veterans support our veterans program, we talk about investing into agriculture. We talk about investing into ranching, into small business technologies, and then mentoring programs and fellowship programs within small business to also get subcontracts within the federal government, creating opportunities. One of our plans is working with our veterans. We know the VA hospital, we're short nurses in our state, we're short doctors. So I've talked to the University of New Mexico. What I'd like to do is work with them and expand our nursing programs actually right here at the VA hospital. We know we're short 3,200 nurses in our state, and so UNM has a great nursing program. How can we generate more nurses by using and training them at our VA hospitals, creating more nursing programs for that? And then we want to make sure our doctors, we have a plan, we've talked about it, about recruiting more doctors and actually expanding our residency programs. By expanding our residency programs, that means we can get more residencies within the VA hospitals. At the same time, we've sat and talked to UNM, we sat and talked to Presbyterian. We want to build out around 10 medical community centers around the state. There's probably some communities who probably need some full-blown upgrades in our hospitals, but 10 community centers to make sure our veterans, not just our veterans, but everybody, have preventative and have health care coverage in some of these community medical centers that we're talking about. We know there's some great programs already out there. We can also do telemedicine. We've talked about it before within a healthcare plan, is expand telemedicine. We have the ecosystem with the university, we have telemedicine, and we have a company here right now that can expand our telemedicine. That means our veterans in Santa Rosa, our veterans in the north, our veterans in the south can do telemedicine and see their doctors, not only at the VA, but if they want to see an expert specialist through UNM, through the Cancer Center, through Presbyterian, we can do telemedicine also with those things, with that opportunities. So that's what we're talking about when we help expand our veterans with our telemedicine. And then we know that we have to expand our medical costs and our medical opportunities, cannabis being one. We want to expand our medical cannabis programs across the board for that reason, but we also know we have to work with our veterans. We know medical cannabis is being very beneficial with a lot of our veterans, and we want to talk a little bit more about that. So it's about our veterans and supporting our veterans coming off Memorial Weekend. Like I said, we index much higher than average states. And when you look at our Native American brothers and sisters, and I look at the Latino community and the communities around our state, we have a lot of veterans, and we need to make sure we're taking care of those veterans and creating programs for them. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to create small business loans for them, for veterans businesses. We're going to expand opportunities with our federal contracts and subcontractings for our veterans. We want to create rehab programs within farming and agriculture and business opportunities. And then we can work with the Small Business Administration and create veteran loan programs. The SBA has a veterans program. Up to $500,000, they'll guarantee up to 90% for our veterans. So folks, by doing all this too, it also creates economic growth for our state and creates other jobs. So our veterans have given a lot back to our state, a lot back to our country. We need to make sure we're taking care of our veterans, and as we recruit more of our military into service, that we make sure we take care of our long-term generational veterans and our new veterans that are coming out. At the same time, we want to make sure we do a single-payer system or a Medicaid system, Medicaid program, Medicare program that we can roll out to all our veterans to take a look at that. So I've been talking now for about 10, 15 minutes, I think, right, Mitchell? So these are our veterans programs. I'd ask you to go to our website, take a look at those. Those are some of the things that we've been talking about. But I think we want to take some questions now. Now, I see about 20 people online. But one of the questions we get all the time when it comes to medical cannabis, and I've been asked this a couple of times from the veterans, our medical cannabis program is a very successful program. We've talked about it before. Yes, we're prepared to legalize cannabis across the board and also grow our medical cannabis side and protect our cannabis side, our medical cannabis side as possible. But we know our veterans. So our veterans, yes, we have to change some of the laws within our medical cannabis, because today within the medical cannabis industry within New Mexico, if you're within the medical cannabis program, you can't own a gun or you can't have a gun. And here we are with our veterans. We train them to use military type of weapons, and a lot of them are hunters. A lot of them are people. And so again, we can go back to the universal background check that we've talked about. But we believe that our veterans, if they want to own guns and they want to be sporting shooters and go out hunting, and they need the medical cannabis program, we need to work with the program and the state program. As your governor, I promise you, I will have a strong program for that to make sure our medical cannabis people move forward. So that was one of the questions we always get. The other question that I get a lot, are we getting any more questions? One of the other questions I'm getting a lot too is our outreach program. I think our state has done a very poor job about outreaching for our veterans, and so our goal is to how do we work with our veterans to make sure we do outreach programs. So there's a couple of things we want to do. One, we want to create within the communities, Community Up. You hear me talk about that within education, within business. We want to talk about Community Up. So we have to work with our communities, and we want to create, like, here's an example. We want to create a veterans Matanza, right? Now, if you don't know what a Matanza is, it's a barbecue where we roast a pig. It's a very Latino thing we've done as a kid growing up. So our point is we can create these type of Matanzas where it's a barbecue, kind of a family, bring families together, just to make sure that our veterans have a community outreach program across the board in every county and every city, so that we can do that, bring our veterans together so they can network and have a support group. At the same time while we're doing these community outreach, we can make sure that we have programs that will help our veterans, so we can get them signed up for their benefits. Let's expose them to educational programs, farming programs, small business programs, opportunities there that we can use. So there's a lot of programs there that our state already has. We just haven't done a good job reaching out to our veterans. So my philosophy is, let's get all together and create community outreach programs from the community up, both the business side and the educational side, to make sure we're doing that. So that's one of the things that we're gonna go through as that. We just got a question from Bill about the medical cannabis bill. I just kind of answered the medical cannabis side, so I think that helps a little bit as we kind of move forward. Here's a question that I don't know who asked this question. Okay. That's a question from Eva. Over 20% of veterans don't have any health care. Do you either support Medicaid expansion or similar steps? That's a great question, Eva. Yes, we talked about almost 61% of our veterans don't have their benefits. So our goal is how we get their benefits for them. And again, we talked about that. Within the healthcare industry, we have to make sure our veterans have health care. Now, with Obamacare, there's no reason our veterans should not have any health care at all. And so we want to make sure about that. So that's part of those outreach programs, Eva, that we've been talking about, is when we bring them together in the community, make sure our veterans have health care benefits for them, and make sure. And again, when we talked about the single payer system, when we go to a single payer system, we believe we can lower costs both on the pharmaceutical cost. Today I had breakfast with some of the firefighters this morning, and we talked about generic drugs and generic pharmaceuticals. And the average, I asked 3 of them that are on monthly prescriptions, and they all pay $7 to $8 prescription. When we know the average prescription with and they use generics, use about 80 cents. So we know that markup. We believe we can do it through the state with our medical Medicaid single payer system to basically lower the cost down to about 80%. So Eva, I want to make sure that you know that we'll have steps within our outreach programs to make sure our veterans get signed up for their medical benefits, whether it's through Medicaid, Medicare, or the healthcare coverage that we're going to be pushing through. And then again, going back to, we're short 300 doctors, 3,200 nurses. I want to expand the residency program using part of the VA and expand the nursing program with UNM based on that too. Okay, Sarah, I know this is off topic, but can you address views on, I don't know. LGBTQ rights. Thanks, Sarah, for that question. I think it's, even if it's Veterans Day or Veterans topics, I think that's always an important topic, obviously within our veterans. Sarah, we believe in protecting everybody, specifically everybody in the LGBTQ community. We've talked about that. It's about building opportunities for everybody and making sure whether we bring social programs back, restorative justice programs back, we've talked about within education, so our kids feel protected and feel part of the community within our education. At the same time, we have to create jobs programs and job opportunities for everybody, specifically within that community. We want to make sure there's opportunities. Now, I have a track record over 32 years in the private sector. I have hired and given opportunities to many people within the LGBTQ community. I think it's important to give everybody an opportunity. So I look at people as, let's make sure we're giving everybody an opportunity. But as governor, you have my word, I will support those rights across the board, all your rights for equal rights across the board. And we've already talked about some of our commissions within the Commission of Status of Women, Commission of Latino Affairs, and we've talked about the LGBTQ community will have a seat at our table, making sure that your voice is being heard within our government, within our administration. So you have my word on that. I think we're getting one more question, and I think we've covered everything on our platform. One of the questions we did get the other day from John about our veterans courts. Look, here's what's going on with our veterans. A lot of them come home and there's not social programs or services programs that we see. And then a lot of our veterans get into drug addiction, become homeless, things like that. So there's 2 things I want to talk about on that John asked about. We have veterans courts. I want to make sure that we expand our veterans courts. We have drug courts, we have rehab courts. I'd really like to expand and take a look at veterans courts, because we have to treat our veterans a little bit different on that. And so we want to make sure we're giving funding there. Today, when you look at our nonviolent criminals, 37% of the people, you've heard me talk about this, 37% of the people incarcerated in our state in our private prisons are nonviolent criminals. And when you look at it, their drug addictions, their things like that, alcoholism, and some of them are veterans. So our proposal is, we spent $221 million on that. So our proposal is, let's move that monies over to rehab and training programs for our veterans and for a drug addiction. Training programs, rehab programs cost $23 a day versus $100 a day in our private system. So we have to fund those kind of programs. Again, community outreach, making sure our veterans are getting services, making sure they're getting mentoring programs, making sure they're getting their GI Bill educational platforms, and then making sure our veterans are being taken care of, and give the opportunities across the board. So this is from Alex. Do you have a plan to invest $1 billion into veterans? Where will this money come from? Oh, sorry, it's $1 million. No, I think it's $1 billion. Alex, thank you so much. Mitchell's handwriting is a little cryptic today, but we're getting better. I know Mitchell gets mad at me when I talk about that. So Alex, let me tell you something. We've been talking about it. Thanks for the question. We've been talking about investing back into New Mexico. Our state now sits on $24.1 billion of investment funds. When I started this campaign on May 2nd, it was $21.5 billion. At Christmas time, it went up to $23 billion. Now, 7 months later, $24.68 billion, almost $24.1 billion of investment funds. And we invest I'm going to probably do my numbers off that, 99.3% of our money we invest outside the state. And I made a video the other day, and I want you to take a look at it, please. I did a video the other day that I was wrong, that we don't sit on $23 billion. It's actually $24.1 billion. I was wrong. We don't invest in New Mexico. We actually invested $168 million over the last 10 years, $168 million into New Mexico industries. But folks, that's 0.0068%, not even 0.7% of your money gets invested back in New Mexico. And last year, we invested into the European Real Estate Fund, mutual fund. Now, I'm not against that, but we invested almost $100 million of your money into the European Real Estate Fund. Now, what is that? We dug into it. They're building condos in Germany. So almost $100 million of your money we invested into condo job creation in Germany, but we'll only invest 0.0068% of our money back into New Mexico. So we're going to invest 5% of that back into New Mexico. Now, to get back to Alex's answer, Alex, we're going to create low-debt finance loans for small industries. So we're talking about small businesses. We're not going to invest $1 billion into veterans businesses, but we're going to make sure our veterans have job opportunities, but also have loan programs. Now, I've talked to John Garcia over at the SBA. We're going to partner with the SBA. The SBA has a loan program with veterans that they can they can borrow up to $500,000 and 90% guaranteed through the SBA, through our federal government. So I want to partner with them. So let's make an example. If a veteran comes in and wants to start a business and we have a good business plan, we want to create a mentoring program and a fellowship program to make sure he has the tools to succeed, number one. Number two, I want to partner with the SBA up to $500,000. They'll do it. So let's say we do $500,000. So the state will invest a 2.5% low-debt finance loan for that veteran. The SBA has a very similar program, either close to that interest or below that interest, but the SBA will guarantee 90% of that loan to our veterans. So our goal is today, we have 15,000 veteran companies today. How do we grow that to 30,000? And that's one of our plans, is to help veterans and grow that. And if we can grow that, and I want to target agriculture, I want to target community programs, but I also want to target small businesses that subcontract, and we can go get some of these subcontracts in our federal contracts. Today, I'm making up a number, but today, an example is Kirtland. They subcontract out over $1 billion a year in subcontracts. The state today gets about 35%, local businesses get about 35%, 38%. I think it's getting better because I've heard their goal is to get to 50%, but I hear they're close to that. So Kirtland's doing a better job. Can we do that with Sandia? Can we do that with Los Alamos? Can we do that with our air bases and our universities? Any federal grants? How can we get 6% of those subcontracts to veterans businesses? And Alex, that's what we're talking about. So we won't invest $1 billion into veteran businesses, but we feel we can create verticals within that $1 billion investment, and veterans is one of them. And again, we want to do it within agriculture. We want to do it within technology, small business, cybersecurity. A lot of the younger veterans that are getting out today, they're younger veterans that are very tech savvy. So we've developed, you've heard me talk about this before, cybersecurity, photonics, LASIKs, lasers, technology. We're developing technology, biotechnology all day long today, and those companies leave our state. So our goal is, how do we work with our veterans to start those programs up? So Alex, I hope I answered your question. This is Kenneth. Do you have a plan to address veterans' homelessness? You know, Kenneth, that's a great idea. And if it's the Kenneth I know, Kenneth Colby, we've talked about this. Is it, Kenneth? Yeah. Kenneth, this is a great question. We've talked about this. Kenneth actually has a program that he's starting to build affordable housing or smaller housing. He's looking at Gallup. Specifically, we've talked about doing this in the Native American lands. I sit on the Yes Housing Board. Now, if you don't know what Yes Housing is, I agreed to sit on the board a few years back. Yes Housing develops affordable housing, multi-living housing. And in fact, if you look at the Silver Building, Silver Empire Building downtown, it's multi-living, affordable living with multi-use, and it has a grocery store, stuff like that. One of the first grocery stores that we built in downtown Albuquerque, probably in, 40 years, believe it or not. So I'm pushing the Yes Housing not only to go to low-income housing, but we should look at affordable housing. We know, Kenneth, that we need affordable housing, and so in our state, not only for our veterans. Then we create programs, very much like Kenneth's programs, we create programs for small unit housing, affordable housing, whether it's affordable housing or low-income housing. But we need to create these areas for our veterans. And we'll do that with part of our jobs program and making sure that they're getting the needs and the services within our jobs programs. And that's one of the things we want to invest into, both private and public. And then there's nonprofits that want to help us with that too. And I know Ken's one of those. We're about at the 30-minute mark, aren't we? Kind of give or go or take a minute. So I think this will be the last question, and then I'll kind of wrap it up. This is from Blair. Any specific healthcare or behavioral investments that you implemented to help New Mexico veterans? Well, Blair, that's a great question. Thank you very much. Behavioral health, as you know, Governor Martinez cut 15 behavioral health companies out of business for political gain over Obamacare, and then cut funding. And we know that only one had one accounting issue, which I think was about $241. So we know there was no due process there. So Blair, what we've been talking about is working with behavioral health today and making sure we bring those programs back with behavioral health. And make sure we're protecting our veterans with our behavioral health programs also. Those programs have really hurt the state of New Mexico. The Governor Martinez cut 15 of those programs out. Companies went away, and now 6% of the people we incarcerate that are nonviolent criminals, 6% are veterans, and a lot of them are over behavioral and mental health issues. So part of the VA has a program we've talked about. And so part of the VA, we want to work with the VA to expand that program, but also take those monies out of the private prison, which is costing us, again, $100 a day to incarcerate them when they actually need to be in these programs and have mental health care programs. We've also passed on about $130 million of federal matching funds because we don't create these what they call Medicaid fees, that we can create Medicaid fees within behavioral health, generate between $30 and $35 million of Medicaid fees. By doing that, we can then apply for 4-to-1 matching by the federal funding, and then generate almost $100 million into those programs. And Blair, that's what we're talking about within those programs, also using for veterans. So anyway, we're at the 30-minute mark. I know we always like to try and keep it about 30 minutes. Thank you for joining us today. I do want to wrap up with a couple of things. One, if you didn't see the Albuquerque Journal this morning, it says State Permanent Funds, Hot Topics for Governor Hopefuls. And what I want you to take away from this right here is it kind of shot me down, or it kind of said I was scolded a little bit because I pulled out the Constitution the other day in the debate. Look, if there's one thing we're talking about is investing. We now have $24.1 billion. We've now found out that $168 million of that money was invested in New Mexico. That's 0.0068%. Folks, the one thing I took away from the Albuquerque Journal, and I ask you to go online or take a look at that article today. What the Journal said was, Apodaca's thinking outside the box. What the Journal said was he wants to invest that into New Mexico Industries to create jobs. What the Journal never said was, I can't do it. The Journal never said Jeff was wrong. I can promise you right now one thing about the Journal, and sitting with the editorial board and sitting with Kent, the publisher, who's against, that's why they didn't endorse us. They're against me using the permanent funds for economic job growth and investing back into New Mexico. As Ken said it, it's a slippery slope, Jeff, once you start doing that. I don't get that. Don't understand that. We invest 99.3% of our $24.1 billion outside our state. We invested into those companies, Ken. We invested into those companies outside our state. So all we're saying is we're going to invest 5% of it back into New Mexico Industries within agriculture, startups, small business, within our veterans programs and our veterans businesses. We can do that constitutionally. Yes, we might only make a 2.5% return versus an 8.6 5-year return, or even last year they made 11 to 12% return. Yes, we might make less return on that, but we're going to be investing $1.2 billion in job creation, getting paid back 2.5%. People that are seeing this video for the first time with a week to go look at our Facebook post and we'll repost it again so you have it. But talk about how we can do it. I can promise you right now, if the Constitution wouldn't allow us to invest these funds in the state of New Mexico, if I needed legislative approval, I can promise you in that Albuquerque Journal story this morning, they would have said that. They would have loved to say Jeff Apodaca, gubernatorial candidate, is wrong. That's not what they said. What they said was, we have a candidate that thinks outside the box. What they said was, we have a candidate that wants to invest 5% of that money back into New Mexico to create 225,000 new jobs. What the article also said was, Joseph Cervantes thinks we can't do it. What it also said was, Congresswoman Grisham says it's not credible, but then she's been very quiet lately because she's now realized, she's finally, after 30 years in political office, she has finally sat down with the State Investment Council. She's finally sat down with the budget. I heard she stormed out of the meeting after 30 minutes, but she finally sat down and realized, yes, we can do this. And now she's plagiarizing our ideas, she's plagiarizing our plan, and making sure that people think like she's the one that's coming up with this. Bottom line is, what the Journal said this morning was, you have a gubernatorial candidate that wants to do major change. You have a gubernatorial candidate that wants to do different things and thinks outside the box. Folks, we have a new ad running. It's called Crossroads. Started running it this weekend. Take a look at it. It's on our Facebook page. What it's talking about is, we can elect the 2 elected officials who've been in office for over 50 years political experience. And if you throw Pierce in there, it's over 70 years political experience. Their way has driven us to the highest unemployment in the country, 50th in education, 50th in job creation. 146,000 lost jobs. One of my opponents is now running a commercial saying that we're leaving our children behind. Guess who's left them behind? She did. She now wants to come out and say, oh, as governor, I'm going to help you. Where's she been for the last 30 years? Not helping us. So yes, am I sometimes angry about that? Absolutely. That's why we're going to invest 5%. In the Albuquerque Journal, if they knew we couldn't do this, they would have called me out in this article today. They didn't do that. What they said was, they have a candidate that thinks outside the box. We have a candidate that has that's a leader, that has new ideas to turn New Mexico around. The reason they didn't endorse us is because the publisher, Kent, and I talked. He just thinks investing out of the permanent funds is a bad idea. I don't. Now, I'm not crazy. We're not talking about investing $24 billion. We're just talking about investing just 5%, $1.2 billion back into back into New Mexico to create 225,000 new jobs. When we do that, we generate over $1.8 billion of tax revenue, $800 million surpluses a year. A third of them we will make sure go back into these type of programs, our veterans programs, small business programs, educational programs, the high-risk pool. We take care of the high-risk pool. Congresswoman Grisham and Representative Armstrong don't have to pay themselves millions of dollars and use their political influence to pass bills to protect that industry, to protect their company, to pay them hundreds of thousands of jobs. And as your governor, I'll make sure that Congresswoman Grisham will not be pushing pill mills and pharmaceuticals and opiate addiction in our state. That's exactly what's happened. So let me tell you, we're 7 days away from the election. And don't believe these polls you're seeing, because they don't match what we see. We know we're within striking distance of the Congresswoman. We also know, and the poll did say this, we also know that 22% of the people are undecided. Yes, folks, we have to get that undecided over to us. Yes, the Latino community, specifically the North and the South Valley, Gallup, Grants, Native Americans, you have to go vote. We know that's our strength. We know that's where people are. Folks, the status quo is not working. So this is your moment. This is our moment. We're at a crossroads, and that's why that commercial's running. Either we stay the same, stay the status quo, or we invest back into a new direction to turn New Mexico around. And by doing that, we'll invest $1.2 billion back into you. By doing that, we're going to create 225,000 new jobs. By doing that, we're going to move 8% of public education department money out of the top administrative costs, contracts, Park Test, Parsons, $225 million, 8%. We're going to move it back into our classrooms. And by doing that, we're going to give our teachers higher raises, $43,000, $47,000, $55,000 a year, $10,000 to $12,000 starting more salaries a year. And every state employee, every educator, every person will get a 3% raise annually. You have my word on it. For every dollar we give you, you put 87 cents back into the economy. For every dollar we give you, you put it back into the economy, it creates 3 to 6 new dollars. That's how we need to drive our economy and improve our schools. So let me tell you, we have 7 days. We're going to turn New Mexico around together, but I need you to get out and vote. Early voting continues this week until Saturday. And then I need you to vote next week on Tuesday the 5th. And then let's celebrate that evening victory and represent the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party that has pushed a lot of you away. You've told me that. As your governor, I promise you I'll bring you back to the table. I will make sure your voice is heard within not only the Democratic Party, but within all the state of New Mexico, within the governor's office. We need your help. I need your help to turn New Mexico around. It's time we work together, put our differences aside, and invest back into New Mexico with our leadership, with our plan. God bless you guys. Take a look at our plan. Share this video. Share some of our new videos. And get out and vote. Get everybody out and vote. 7 days to go. God bless you all. Take care.